Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Time to check out something a little bit more on the higher end for Intel's 13th Gen and Z790. Today we're checking out the ASUS ROG Strix Z790E Gaming Wi-Fi, an absolute beast of a board. However, remember ladies and gents, with these motherboard videos, these videos are not reviews. They're just overviews so we can take a look at the feature set of boards like this and what physically comes in the box. And there's a lot to look at today with this board. So let's take a look, and I'll shut up. Actually, I'm gonna keep talking, but yeah, you get it, all right, you get it. All right, ladies and gents, here it is, the ASUS ROG Strix Z790E Gaming Wi-Fi. First of all, let's get that motherboard out of the box so we can take a bit of a closer look at everything that comes with this board. Alright, first up we've got the Wi-Fi antenna for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E and the Bluetooth that comes on this board. We've also got this little keyring. These are actually quite popular. I have seen people use these around the place, so it's cool that's included. There's also this little card, get ready to rock the gaming world with ROG Strix. I'm not going to read this whole thing. You guys can read that in your own time. There's also some documentation that shows you how to socket a CPU, and it has the motherboard layout and just a few little things to help you. However, this video is going to show everything on that layout anyway. There's also this little sheet of ROG stickers. People love this, love it or hate it. It's in the box. There's also the user guide. This is pretty handy if you've built heaps of PCs or if you've never built one before, because it shows you where everything is. There's also this is a GPU support bracket that comes with the motherboard, which is very handy for those thick boy GPUs. There's also a bunch of additional thermal pads and additional mounting hardware for the M.2 slots on this board. There is a lot of storage on this board, which we'll get into in a moment. Then we've got these. Now, these are fan holders. You can actually mount individual fans for VRM cooling on this board, but you don't need to, but there is an option for it. There's also some cable ties or some zip ties, which just help you with a little bit of cable management. It is nice that these are included in the box. And then lastly, we've got a set of SATA or SATA cables for some 2.5-inch SSDs or spinning Rust drives. People always ask why I call them that. Just have a listen to them while they're spinning and should answer your question. Okay, let's unsheath the Z790E Gaming Wi-Fi and take a bit of a closer look at everything on the board. But first, I actually want to do something different. Let's do a comparison between the Z690E and the Z790E because I thought there were a couple similarities here just by seeing them both in a short period of time. You can see that the PCB layout is quite similar. The M.2 slots at the bottom, well, the heatsinks at least, are very similar here as well. You'll also notice that it has the same release, well, to be honest, it has the button in the same place, but the release system on the Z790E is a bit nicer because it's spring-loaded as the Z691 isn't. Thought you might find that a little bit interesting, and I want to do more comparisons like this if I have boards from both or more than one generation. You'll also notice that the heatsink for the top M.2 slot is quite similar as well, which is why I thought this comparison may be useful for people who want to see the differences between the two. We've got the front panel audio header. There is also a Thunderbolt header if you're using a Thunderbolt add-in card. There's two 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB headers. There's also a PWM fan header, two USB 2.0 headers for things like liquid coolers and RGB controls and all that jazz. There's some more PWM fan headers as well. There's two in total down the bottom, as well as the front panel connector for your lights and all your switches and everything to let you know that your system is up and running. There's a right-angled USB 3.2 header underneath the heatsink. There's 4 SATA or SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning Rust drives. You might be asking, why isn't there more? You're about to see in a minute. There's another USB 3.2 front panel header for USB Type A. There's a USB Type C front panel header. There is a 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new Z790E gaming Wi-Fi. There is a power button, which is very useful if you're bench testing, and a postcode LED screen for diagnosing your system if anything goes wrong if it posts. Along the top of the board, we've got a 4-pin 12-volt RGB header, a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header, some more PWM fan headers. They're typically used for liquid coolers and for CPU fans and that jazz. There's another PWM fan header on the other side, and two 8-pin EPS power connectors to send juice to your 12th or 13th gen Intel CPUs. There's also two more PWM fan headers, which I thought were worth mentioning, and they are located above the top M.2 slot. For the PCIe slots on this board, we've got a single by 16 PCIe Gen 5 slot and two PCIe Gen 4x4 slots, which are both by 16 size, but obviously they are not by 16 wired. Right, as for the VRM layout on this board, it features an 18+1 phase digital VRM design with 90 amp power stages, and as you can see here, both of the heatsinks are linked with a heat pipe, and the cooling is more than adequate. However, you can add additional cooling as mentioned with the fan kit that is in the box, and as you can see, the I/O cover, the whole thing basically, is another heatsink for that too. Now this features Intel's LGA 1700 socket, so it's got standard cooler mounting here. However, it does allow you to use LGA 11.5X coolers and LGA 1200 coolers if you're upgrading from a system where you've got another older Intel cooler. You should be okay with this board in most instances. All right, let's open the LGA 1700 socket to take a little bit of a quick look inside of the socket. Now, there's not really that much to talk about with this, but if for people who have never seen this before, I always do this because it is nice to see what you're getting yourself into. If we flip the board over, there's nothing really interesting to see back here except some nice screen printing on the back of the PCB. For RAM support, it supports 4 DDR5 RAM modules up to 128 gigs in total at 7800 megatransfers overclocked. Okay, let's take the heatsinks off for the M.2 slot on this board. This board has a ridiculous amount of storage, as you're about to see. Now, there's a single PCIe Gen 5x4 M.2 slot at the top of the board. There's another 4 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slots on this board. So in total, 5 M.2 slots on this board, which is absolutely bonkers for any motherboard. That's a lot going on there. For the rear I/O, we've got a DisplayPort connector, HDMI, we've got a lot of USB Type A ports. There's a clear CMOS button, a BIOS flashback button, USB Type C, there's a 10 gig port and a 20 gig Type C port. There's 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, the antenna connectors for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E and the Bluetooth, and 7.1 digital surround sound with optical and SPDIF output with an integrated I/O shield. There is a lot going on with this motherboard. The Z790E gaming Wi-Fi is absolutely packed full of features, and this is just about as crazy as you'd want to go if you're crazy enough to spend money on a board like this. I don't have much to comment about the features because it does everything. So if you're looking for a board for either 12th or 13th gen Intel CPUs, and you quite literally want it to do everything, this is a serious contender. Because if you're interested in the ASUS ROG Strix Z790E gaming Wi-Fi, they're going for around $499 US, or wait for the Australia tax, 959 Australian dollars at the time of filming this video. As I said, this board with the feature set is pretty wild. It'll do everything you need it to possibly ever do with the price tag to match, right? And that's just how it is with motherboards and everything at this point in time because of many, many factors that we won't go into. Anyways, guys, if you like this motherboard overview and videos like this, please do us the absolute favor of hitting the subscribe button. And if you want the music, right next to the subscribe button is a button called the join button. If you want it, click that. I don't know how much it costs, like $1 or something, and you can listen to all the music that I make on the channel. right? Without it being in a video. Or you could just watch the videos over and over if you really want to watch the bits with the music. Well, that's probably more helpful, isn't it, Claire?
Sure.
Yeah, just do that. We've also got a 4-hour mix of all of the music you can listen to for free, which is good too. And your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You pick, we seek, and that is another motherboard overview. And I think we're through all the motherboards we've got for now. In a world where Gear Seekers never existed.